Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and broadcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. Good to see you, David. What's new?
Likewise, Jesse. Yeah, what's new? There's stuff new, but we're going to talk about that a little later, maybe. We'll hint a little bit about our new Powered by BDEX concept, and then maybe we'll on the closing we can talk about it a little more. Want to be able to welcome our guests and spend some time with our guests first.
All right, well, let's get into it. So today on Deconstructing Data, we are thrilled to welcome Barbara Cavness, CEO of Uncommon Logic. Let me bring her in. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to have you, Barbara. So we're going to let you kick it off a little bit first. Would love to have you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers. Give a little bit of background, how you got to where you are today as CEO of Uncommon Logic, and a little bit about what Uncommon Logic is doing for its customers today.
Sure. One of my favorite topics, talking about my company. Uncommon Logic has been around for almost 18 years now. We're a digital marketing agency based in Austin, Texas. We have a number of different things that we do for our clients, but the sort of overarching theme is everything rooted in data. We love to measure. We're huge fans of Excel. As far as how I became CEO, it's kind of a funny story. I was actually hired originally to help build out the client services team. I've worked in agencies my entire career, so had a lot of experience with the client management side, client strategy side. So our founders, originally brought me on board to do that, but probably a couple of years into the gig, I was starting to think about, okay, what's next? And one day I strutted into my boss's office and say, I'd totally run this whole company one day, not expecting him to say, that's a great idea. We should talk about that. And next thing you know, I'm the CEO. And that was actually 10 years ago, a couple of weeks ago. So it's been an unbelievable ride. I'm so thankful. The people I work with are just brilliant and wonderful. I've learned a ton professionally, grown in ways I never would have expected. And now I get to do amazing things like be on podcasts.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's a great surprise to walk into your boss's office and say something like that. Next thing you know, you're the boss. So
literally, I ran to the library and checked out CEOing for Dummies really quickly after that conversation.
That's a good one.
That's really good. And I love that, everything you guys are doing there is really data focused. And so let's get right into our first topic of humanizing performance-based business. So can you kick us off on this, Barbara?
Absolutely. One of the other reasons I wanted to be the CEO is what I realized at that point in my career is how much I love the people development part of the work. In our business in particular, marrying how you develop great talent in a data-focused, world or role or industry, that's really become a big passion of mine. I love the sort of third axis of that is how do you then take what you know and go help your clients. So, when I think about the human part of it, it's literally everything from, how you manage and build culture to hiring and training and developing the right people to how well you listen to and understand your customers. I think especially now, right, with such a focus on AI and data and the importance of those things, not losing the through line of, okay, well, what is the role of people in this? And how do you do everything from evolving and adapting your people's skills to not losing sight of the value that the human touch can have when it comes to how you leverage technology, leverage data. I use a metaphor a lot of the times about, a Formula One car and the driver. I do think there's that little bit of extra sort of edge that the driver brings to the performance machine that couldn't necessarily just be done by the machine alone.
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, it really is. And so as your role as CEO, there's sort of this balance where you're balancing the human relationships part of it, but you're also balancing the processes and trying to build some efficiencies within the business.
Sure.
Curious about, so I can imagine that there's actually a bit of that carries over to how you interact with your customers as well. I'm curious about, how you see that. I mean, to me, that's right. That's a part of humanizing the performance-based business. So,
Sure.
how do you manage that?
So in a lot of ways, I think, of course, at the end of the day, finding smart ways to leverage technology so that we can do for our end clients what they need us to do from a digital marketing perspective in as efficient a way as possible is critical to delivering maximum value, right? If you don't learn how to get better, deliver your services more efficiently, more than likely you're not going to be around long. So that's one thing that we spend a lot of time thinking and talking about, as a leadership team is, okay, what are the right ways to leverage technology, to leverage AI, to deliver for our end customer. I think then on the people side of it, I am a huge believer in training, and we've built over time a really unbelievable training program for our people. So then it's a matter of how do you continue to evolve that program to teach them the skills that they need such that they can service the customers really well. And then I think the last thing is how well do you understand how your clients are using technology, and what is the role that you can play in either helping them get more out of that technology, helping them consider new technologies, and again, that's a person-to-person thing, right? Sitting down with your CMO client saying, hey, what are your business goals? What are your marketing goals? And those are sometimes different things, right, that they're being accountable for. And how can we help you through a combination of what we know and the technologies that are out there to meet those goals?
Yeah, that's awesome that you're doing that for your clients and sitting down with the CMOs. And you're right, there are always, two things that we're trying to balance. So it takes a human. And speaking of humans and leadership challenges in data-driven agency landscape. Could you kick us off on this, Barbara?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of dialogue in the last handful of years about both talent acquisition and talent retention. So I think for sure any good leader will tell you that that's something they're always considering is how do I make sure that I'm finding and retaining the best talent? I think that back to the human piece, making sure that you also have the right balance of when to push and challenge your people to build new skills versus when you double down on the things that they're already really good at. There's a whole other world, I think, in any agency where things like the economy play a role, right? That's certainly been a big topic of late. Helping our clients navigate those, bumps has been a big one for us. So I would say it's been more complicated in terms of the kinds of issues we've seen with our clients and how they're sort of calling on us to help, and probably more so than in a really long time, maybe ever in my career.
How does, I'm curious for you. So obviously you say in the topic we talked about leadership challenges in a data-driven agency. And so how does data play a role in sort of managing that day-to-day as well, and sort of making those leadership decisions within the agency?
Sure. I actually think there's kind of two ways that I think about that. One is sort of what is the data for my business, and how am I using data in the most thoughtful ways to inform the decisions that I'm making. But in a digital marketing world, there's how are our clients using their data, right? There's a whole world of ways that we get involved with helping our clients use their data to make business decisions. One of the things, honestly, that we're facing down a lot right now with third-party cookies going away, with the complexity that exists now as far as how you market to your end customer, helping our clients use the data that they have to better inform their strategies is really become a huge and growing need, I would say. As I was kind of joking with you guys before we got on, we have a lot of clients that don't even have a central repository for all of the data that they need to even, create those strategies. So in some cases, it may be almost kind of helping them begin with those foundational needs of, hey, you've got 3 different places where all of the relevant data lives. How do we, consolidate that for you? Then, move on to actually creating some great strategies from that data.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think that's a challenge that a lot of companies are dealing with now, whether they were proactive and dealt with it over the past, couple of years, knowing that cookie deprecation was coming, or whether they're scrambling now and having to figure out how to do it today. The reality is the data that you're collecting, sort of the process has changed, right? And so you can no longer rely on sort of these third-party cookie tools that were enabling you to do it. So you really have to rely on more first-party data and tools that will track data in a first-party world for you. And then figure out, okay, you can't do the same things with that data as you could do with third-party data, right? So now you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to leverage this data to get the outcomes that I'm looking for, right?
Absolutely. And then marry that with, we live in a very customer-centric world, right? Everybody wants this custom experience. Don't you dare show me golf clubs if I'm not a golfer kind of expectation. But no, you cannot have my data, and everything that I want to do on the internet is private. So how do you actually reasonably approach a customer and say, hey, could you please consent? We'd like to collect some information about you so we can deliver this custom experience, when you have all of these sort of other concerns or hurdles that you're dealing with. Never mind the fact that, just the sheer number of places that your customers hang out now, it's almost like you have to have, a different sort of storefront in every place, right? So, if your customers hang out in Facebook and Instagram, on Google, et cetera, you have to almost set up shop everywhere, and then figure out what data you're going to be able to get and how to marry it in a way that informs a good strategy.
Yeah, it is kind of annoying in that way. You have to have 3 or 4 or 5 different, storefronts, right, with each of the different platforms, in order to make sure that you're reaching the customer, and not just reaching the customer, but being able to track what the engagement was with the customer. And you used to be able to do that, sort of from one storefront because of third-party cookies, and now with limited tracking on iOS and deprecation of cookies, now you have to have all these sort of separate ways to track the.
Totally. Well, and think about it. You could also funnel so much into your website as well. And even if you had some, call it holes in how you gathered your data or things like that, just having a funnel, right? We all love to talk about the marketing funnel. That was incredibly helpful from both a marketing strategy perspective, but honestly, even on the business side, in terms of how you would assess where the challenges and opportunities were. And it's not that the funnel doesn't exist anymore, but it's got more holes in it, I would say now. And figuring out either where you're going to be able to sort of plug the hole, or maybe where you may even have to make some assumptions, because you can't not continue to market, you can't not continue to try to engage your customers, but there are going to be some limitations just because of the privacy angle of the data collection world now. The privacy challenges, I should say.
Yeah, you can no longer have one funnel and track the 12 different places that people are coming from into that one funnel. It's just seamless like that anymore.
It's much more complex.
Sorry, Jesse. I wonder for how that's going to impact user experience over the long haul. And I think that is, while that's more on the sort of testing and creative side of things, like there's a real data component to that, right? Because when you're able to do some really great tests of your customers and better understand them, that leads to really informed, useful data. And I wonder how that's going to have to continue to evolve.
It's a great point. What would you say is the most important data for a leader to make sure that they're collecting and harnessing? And if you had to pick one stat that like an agency leader should really make sure they're collecting data on and focusing on, what is that?
So we have a joke in my agency that there's 4 answers to every question in digital marketing. The 4th answer is it depends. And what I mean by that is, so if you're thinking about how I am as an agency leader assessing the sort of health and viability of my business, I'm going to be looking at client retention and employee retention. I'm going to be continuing to also look for anything and everything that I can do to assess the marketplace, meaning what are the demands, of my end customer as far as marketing services go. If I were advising, a CMO or, someone on the client side, it would depend on the business, honestly. What I would say to a CMO of an e-commerce company as far as priority metrics would be totally different than, a SaaS platform. I swear I'm not trying to hedge. It's just, we're, again, right? I love Excel. We love data. So it's like, what do you mean? Like, I only pick one? It's like, which of my kids do I love? I want all the data.
Yes, exactly. And even the bad data is good data, right? It tells us something.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Definitely. Oh, that's interesting. Well, anything else either of you want to share on leadership challenges in a data-driven agency landscape?
One thing that I'm passionate about, back to sort of my car and driver metaphor, I would challenge any leader who is in a data-driven business to continue to not lose focus on what is the value of the human component. Until the machines can feel empathy, can feel jealousy, can feel envy, can respond to data in a different kind of, call it a more human, real-time way, I don't think the role of humans is going to be diminished. And you're better off finding, really what is the right marriage of the two and how to sort of maximize value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. We've talked about that, the whole idea of, what is AI truly going to replace and what can it not? And we've had similar thoughts in the fact that, there are certain roles that require a human. There are certain roles that are repeatable processes that AI can do for us. But
on the data side, right? Data collection, data analysis, give the people the, do the legwork, right? And then let the people do the human part, right? But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Can't forget about the qualitative data, the things the humans say.
Yeah, well, and I mean,
as much as people want to assume that you can use, AI can do all the selling for you, it's just not. It's not happening. I mean,
don't I wish my sales manager would be off on a private island in French Polynesia if that was possible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that would be great, but it's just not the way it is. So on to the next topic, fostering a culture of data experts. So now we've talked a lot about humans. How do we make sure that all the humans on the team at the digital agency are in line with what important metrics there are, that they're, entering data correctly, tracking data correctly? How do you do this?
So again, personal opinion, personal preference. I think it really starts with how you hire. So understanding the profile of your sort of ideal employee, ideal team member is huge. And for me, I look for people who aren't marketing trained. Believe it or not, no one who works for me has a marketing degree, that may be an old stat, but let's say a very small minority do. I love to hire people who have economics backgrounds, who have engineering backgrounds, because what I'm really looking for is that inquisitive nature and kind of an innate ability to ask good questions and have curiosity, right? One of the things in digital marketing is you kind of have to be willing to keep digging and keep digging and keep digging to mine for great insights and great actionable ideas. So I think a little bit of the sort of anatomy of your employee is really important. I think also knowing how to ask really good questions, and that's just as important on the client side, right? Demonstrating to our clients that we were thoughtful in how we prepared for every conversation. We're really working to understand their business and the things that make them unique. I think is another really important sort of human trait that you have to bring to a data-focused role. For sure, the ability to think on your feet. I mean, kind of to the AI conversation, the rate of change is as fast as I've ever seen it. And having an appetite to experiment and adapt and try new things, I think is another really critical personality trait that you need to hire for in an industry like ours.
I love hearing that.
Do you, so I'm curious, based on the things that you're saying, it leads me to a question. Do you use a personality profiling test as part of your hiring process?
We've used a bunch. And you're totally putting me on the spot, David, because I'm blanking on the name of the tool we use right now.
It's okay. No, you don't have to, you don't even have to like, plug the tool. We use a product called Culture Index, which I really like.
Yep.
It's really unique in the sense that it's a really simple test to take. It makes it's not like some of those like Myers-Briggs. It's like you gotta go through 20 pages of questions to build a profile. Culture Index is really unique in the sense it's 2 questions.
Yeah.
and
familiar.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever taken it?
So no.
That's what blew me away when I took it, and then because I went to a seminar on it and I took it, and the guy explained me to a T, and then he had us do a profile of a bunch of our employees at the time, and he went through and he described all my employees to a T, and I'm like, okay, I'm done, I'm sold.
Where do I sign? Yeah. I'm honestly
just from looking at a chart.
I'm mortified that I'm blanking because we went through a pretty exhaustive search, and what we actually ended up going with was a tool that we could customize, kind of same idea, right? We had all of our current employees go through the test, sort of baseline some things, especially because there are kind of some specific things that I'm looking for that I don't want to say that I'm a unique snowflake or anything like that, but that I was particularly adamant about us needing. And so we wanted a tool that allowed us to customize a little bit in terms of how someone would work through the test so we could really get at who they were. And I'll wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow, David, and think of it, and I'll send you an email.
Sounds good. But yeah, I mean, to your point, just being able to do sort of that personality profile and knowing the profile of the person that you need for a specific role enables you to put the right people in the right seats, and that's key to your success from a culture perspective and from a business perspective of making sure that you have the right people doing the right tasks. We
also are, again, it sounds so old school, but God, I love in person. I love it so much, and it doesn't mean I don't love this too, but getting in a room with someone, by the way, whether you're hiring them, whether they're going to hire you, I do not think that the value of that should be diminished, even as we have all these amazing tools that enable us to connect. And so, when we're hiring, we, not just me or even the hiring manager, we have other people on the team interview that candidate, because we're also, like, I call it my, like land of misfit toys, my motley crew. Like, if you met my team from a skill set, interest, personality, all of it, it's a big old group of weirdos, but they're the greatest weirdos in the world, in my opinion. And there's this magic because, from a core values standpoint, from a passion for data, desire to help our clients, everyone is very aligned. And so, how we begin sort of folding everyone into that world, that culture, it starts in the interview, it starts in the hiring. And I think it leads to really strong both employee retention, but also client retention, because, we've got this really passionate, committed group of people who work here. I acknowledge I'm extremely biased.
That's great. That's a good sign. That's how you want your leader to be.
Yeah.
And it really resonated with me when you were talking about, not just hiring the marketing degrees, because I didn't have a marketing degree. And and it still works, and I'm still inquisitive. And when I do talk with people with marketing degrees, I can see what you're saying. Like, there's a different perspective. Like, they have more of the textbook knowledge, which is really important.
Valuable for sure.
Yes. But because they learn this is how it is, the inquisitiveness is maybe as a little bit more lacking. I don't want to say that, but I don't know. I liked that point. Maybe it's just because I don't have a marketing degree.
Oh, but I think it's super germane to like what you guys talk about regularly, which is the data side of it, right? When you have sort of a natural curiosity, it enables you to, like, you don't just look at the data and say, well, I have to look at it in this one way.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to go exploring. And that's honestly, I think that's more interesting, right? Because like, I'm going on an adventure today, I'm going to comb through some data and I have no idea what I'm going to find, right? So in terms of employee engagement and the ideas we can come up with for our clients, I don't know, I think it leads to better outcomes.
Yeah.
No, David, you were going to say something, I apologize.
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point, you just need to be inquisitive, right? And that's that's how people make things happen, because they're inquisitive and they want to figure it out and they want to say, okay, how do I, what do I do with this, or how do I do it? But to your point about having a marketing degree, I mean, you don't need to have an MBA to be a CEO or a founder. I'm both, and really everything I learned on the job, from day one. So
I joke that my MBA is from the School of Hard Knocks.
You gotta love that.
Yeah, and I mean, mad respect to anyone who has an MBA, because that,
Right.
they worked hard
those.
for it. But
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
I just, walked into my boss's office and demanded a CEO job, and then figured it out from there.
Yeah. And these days it's getting, even more lenient. We've got people just graduating high school and going out and building their own businesses. I mean, that happened before, but not at the levels that it's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
I coach high school girls lacrosse on the side. And I actually have a young woman on my team who they came up with, it's a dashboard camera. I'm forgetting all the particulars of what it does, but I mean, again, this is a bunch of 17 and 18-year-old kids, and they've won so many different contests. I mean, they're talking to venture capitalists, and she hasn't even been accepted to college yet. And I'm just sitting there going, my gosh, that level of brilliance and passion, it gives me hope for the future.
That's incredible. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
That gave me chills a little bit.
Yeah. So it's called Notify. She's going to owe me for the free plug, but that's
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So our last topic that we ask all of our guests, Barbara, and we do have post-topic questions too, we'll get to here in just a moment, but we like to ask everyone, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Well, so my team is going to totally cringe at this one. So we use a tool called Smartsheet. Not sexy at all, but I'm a planner, as I kind of joked about, and I'm type A, as I kind of joked about before we hopped on. And because of the high volume of things that we do for our clients, the high volume of clients that we have, as we grew as an agency, we realized that Excel is not the best place to have project plans live, and leads to a few challenges in communication. And so I've loved our sort of use of and growth in using Smartsheet. For me personally, because I still do a lot of selling and presenting, I hate to say it, but I still love me a PowerPoint. But although honestly, as I kind of said, being able to marry that with a great Zoom conversation, or better yet, an in-person meeting, I will forever and always be a lover of getting in front of clients and talking about business problems.
Absolutely. Have you heard of Smartsheet, David?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it, but it has. I have heard of it. I've never used it.
Think like a Monday or a.
Yeah, that's the category.
Yeah.
I mean, we use a million tools. I probably could have listed off a half a dozen others. There are times where I go, man, really, we got to spend this much money on tech? But then, I go to my tech manager and he basically is like, yes, we do. And no, you cannot get rid of any of these.
Yeah, you shut this one down, then all these ones are going to go down.
Exactly. And it's funny because like the interconnectedness of all the tools that we use as an agency, it really is at the point now where it would really negatively impact productivity if we were to try to unwind things. Not that is my goal, but I think we've done such a good job of making our tech stack really efficient, and having it help us, do our jobs as effectively as it can.
It's like DW.
David, thanks for the Smartsheet shout out.
Yeah, he's liking it. He likes. He's saying better than Google Sheets, more functional than Google Sheets. Interesting.
Totally agree, because of the customization options that are available. Also, since we do so many things as an agency, and often have multi-service projects for our clients, right? The sort of cross coordination between departments, like a lot of it can be streamlined in Smartsheets, which is huge, obviously, from a deadline management perspective, resource management, you name it.
Yeah, that's a good one. No, I don't think anyone's mentioned smart sheets on deconstructing data yet. So that's a first. So thanks, Barbara.
I was saying, not the sexiest mention I'm sure you've gotten, but definitely a practical one.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I'll have to check it out. And, so now I guess we'll move into our post-topic questions, Barbara. And so we like to ask our guests, if you could go back to when you first came into, we'll say, the marketing agency world, what is the number one piece of advice you would have given yourself?
Man, I want to hide under the couch with this answer. I just want to preface that. So one of my favorite business books is The 7 Habits. So First Seek to Understand is one of the 7 habits that Covey talks about. And what I like about that is the sort of practical application that I would say to my dumb 22-year-old self is, listen and ask more questions. I'm someone who likes to help people. And so I think when I was younger, I would sort of rush to solutions before, making sure I'd asked all the right questions and I'd really listened to the answers, of my clients before I tried to solution for them. And again, I cringe because it's like, duh, yeah, be a good listener, really. But I do think, at least for me anyway, it was a learned skill, certainly in business.
That's a good one. I don't think anyone's ever mentioned that. Listening is really important.
Yeah, that's really important for sure. Absolutely. And you can't express like how important being a good listener is in business for sure.
I think especially if you're in a consultative role too, right? Your clients are coming to you because they have problems, sometimes really big ones, depending on where they are in their, marketing journey, and making them feel heard, making them feel as though we really understand their problem before you get into, yes, I've got the solution. Again, I think it's critical. We also, there's sort of this ongoing debate of like, do you specialize in agency, around one industry versus you can serve a lot of different types of industries? And I've always had a little bit of a bias towards the latter, because I think that if you know how to ask good questions and you listen really well, it's not about what the digital marketing best practice is for that particular industry. It's really about taking what you know and listening well, right? Asking the questions and then applying it to that client's business and business problems.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And before I move into the next question, looks like DW asked, what books have inspired you? Can you recommend any titles?
Oh, so I mentioned 7 Habits. I absolutely love The Ideal Team Player. I was a college athlete, so I think everything I think about in teams and roles and how you put together a high performance team. So I love The Ideal Team Player. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what's on my nightstand right now, sometimes collecting dust, if I'm being honest. I'll have to think on that one for another minute. I know. I knew there was another one. So my degree's in psychology. So there's a great book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion that I loved. Because even whether you're in a sales role or not, in our industry, right, we're selling ideas, we're selling a strategy. So having sales skills and understanding kind of the mindset of the people that you're dealing with, I think is really valuable. So yeah, those are the two that come to mind.
David says 7 Habits is awesome, so he must have read that one. And that last one sounds really interesting. I'm going to have to add that to my Audible list. I mean, they all sound really interesting.
I think you'd like that last one, Jesse, given your background as a CMO.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. And so going off all of those lessons, are there any lessons you've learned along the way from, past jobs or this current role that you think everyone should know?
Yeah. This probably won't be a surprising answer given some of the things that I've said, but I think more so than ever, leaders having an eye to building high functioning teams. We consult with huge publicly traded clients, and so often their problems come back down to poor communication, siloing of information, siloing of data, not putting enough time and energy into creating alignment around why we're doing what we're doing, what is every person's role. There's so much conversation about younger generations, and one of the things that I love about millennials and Gen Z is they are purpose driven. And so as a leader, you can channel the desire they have to want to have purpose in really impactful and interesting ways if you're willing to take the time to do so.
How do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because, there's also a lot of conversation that I've noticed, especially through COVID and even still now, around transparency. So I try to be as honest with my team about literally everything from what are my goals for the business and why, what I need from them. If things aren't going well, I try to tell them that in a way that doesn't have them, freaked out and dusting off their resume. I look for opportunities to involve them in how we run the business. I do an annual employee survey every year, and I ask about 1 million questions. It makes me so sweaty and stressed out every year because I'm afraid they're going to say they hate working here. But we've made some of the biggest and best changes as a firm by asking our employees, right? It sounds so dumb, but people they either don't ask or they don't do anything with the information when they do ask. And you miss such a simple opportunity to make your people feel like they matter and like you're freaking listening, by not asking. And, I think you can even ask the hard questions and come back around on tough decisions, including things like, hey, team, I'm so sorry. I heard you loud and clear on this. I can't make this change for the following reasons, but here's what I can do. Here's why I can't make the change. And most people are reasonable, right? The crazy is notwithstanding, right? They'll understand. And what I found is people really appreciate that. And they then turn around and bring even more creative ideas in terms of, well, could we do this? Or, they stay engaged.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of the marketers listening and agency owners and CEOs listening need to really pay attention to that. That's all really great. Thank you so much, Barbara. Yeah. And just so you know, David says, a book you might like, then start with why.
Noted.
Thank you, DW.
Yeah, that's another good one as well.
Definitely.
As well as Rockefeller Habits, if you haven't read that one.
Love that one.
Classic.
Love it.
I haven't read that one. I'll have to write it. Sounds like a classic.
Honestly, that one and 7 Habits are so great when you're developing managers. Because think about it, managing people, there is no playbook for that. There really isn't. Wouldn't that be so nice if there were? My God, I'd have like one gray hair if that were true. So instead, if you can teach a set of principles, philosophies, things like that, I found to be, especially again with people who want to be good managers, it goes so much farther.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yep.
Well, I mean, in closing, Barbara, would you like to tell listeners how they can find you after the episode?
Absolutely. So, of course, LinkedIn, please find me there. Also, of course, love to talk to anyone. Uncommonlogic.com is our website. We nerd out about this stuff. So whether or not we're a good fit or not, we kind of have an unofficial motto, try to leave everybody better than we found them. So happy to talk to anyone and see if we can help.
That's awesome. Leave them better than you found them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And real quick before we go, we just want to let our audience members know you can learn more about Powered by BDEX capabilities, which David was mentioning in the intro. And this will enable you to leverage the BDEX identity graph, all the features of our OmniIQ product, and even our AI-powered audience creation capabilities. So I'm going to put up a QR code, but you can also just go to bdex.com and just simply go click the QR code and talk to an expert, and you can learn how to improve your data strategy. And if you're interested in Deconstructing Data sponsorships, this is another thing we're starting. Please reach out to us to learn more. It's something we're going to be starting here very soon. And we'd love to hear from you, per usual. Please reach out to us at info@bdex.com and share your qualitative data with us so we can make it better for you. But before we go, David, I just mentioned Powered by BDEX. So would you want to fill in the audience any more on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, you summed it up pretty well. I mean, the reality is we get a lot of requests for people that want to integrate some of our capabilities, be it our identity graph, the capabilities in OmniIQ, including analytics and audience creation. And they're coming to us saying, hey, you know, how can we integrate this into our platform or into what we do day to day, enable it for our customers? And so we created this powered by BDEX concept, and everything is available by way of an API now. And so all of our capabilities can be easily integrated into other platforms. And so we've had some good success with some initial sort of initial clients that made those requests, and we built this tech for them, and the APIs are getting great usage. And I think that the future of BDEX is this powered by BDEX concept, enabling all the tech that we've built to essentially be used by any other platform and fully integrated.
That's awesome. Well, you heard it here, everyone. So definitely check out Powered by BDEX. Like we mentioned, you're going to, be able to leverage the BDEX identity graph and all the features plus OmniIQ all in one place. But we are so grateful for you, Barbara, for joining us today. You shared such great information. We focus so much on data that it's always great to talk about the human side. So, I really appreciated everything you said. So I'm sure the audience did as well.
My pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Barbara. This was great. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. All right. I'll close this out.